Welcome back to another episode of Projecting Grandeur. I am your host, Ron Dichter. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being part of our growing community. It's been a ton of fun putting these episodes out, and I've gotten some amazing feedback, which motivates me to keep doing it. So hopefully you're finding value and remembering it to share it. Today I want to talk about the middle, and I'm not referring to the middle child. I am talking about the middle of the process of the journey, the middle of anything that you get going. Because let's be honest, everybody thinks the beginning is fun and everybody loves the end because you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. But nobody really talks about the middle, and the middle is where the race is really won. So let's put the analogy out there about a race. And let's say you are at the starting line of a running race. Everybody's cheering, they're excited, like, you can do this, come on, yeah. And you feel really excited and you're pumped up and very, very motivated for the race ahead. And then let's fast forward to the end. You're tired, you're exhausted. All of a sudden, you make that turn, you see the finish line, everybody's cheering. They're like, you can make this, come on. You get that second wind, you start getting fired up, and you sprint towards the finish line. Those are obvious and easy places for you to be motivated, to be focused, and be energized. But what about the part of the race that nobody sees? What about those middle miles where there's nobody on the sidelines cheering for you? There's nobody in sight except you and maybe a handful of runners that are in the same boat that you are in. How do you handle that? I think of business to be very similar to this. When you get started in business, you have a ton of people cheering for you. They want you to be successful. They want you, to fulfill all your dreams and do these things that you've set out to do. And at the end, once you've been celebrated, you've got the accolades, you've got the success, the money, all the stuff that comes with it. Everybody wants to be like patting you on the back. Way to go. I knew you could do this. But the real hard part about that business is that messy, very uncomfortable, oftentimes disheartening middle where maybe things aren't always going right. Maybe things have to be, adjusted throughout, the course of business, just like you would throughout a race. And the middle is where the money is made. And so how do you make sure that when you get out of the gate, you can keep that in momentum, you can keep that enthusiasm, that excitement about the business so that you can get to the end, so you can have the rewards, the accolades, the money, the success, all the things that you're after? Well, it all comes down to planning. When you go out and you run a race, which I'm not a runner, but for those of you that are, and I've interviewed a couple world-class runners on the show, when you get into that race, you have a plan. You know exactly what your average pace is going to be. You know when you're going to put in, second gear and start running faster, or when you're going to, ratchet back and start, conserving that energy. Well, the same thing applies in business. You have to have a plan, and plans can be adjusted, right? Plans don't have to be absolute. They just have to be a guide. And so oftentimes when I see people getting started in business, they're really excited, but they're not excited about the business. They're excited about the finish line of the business. And that is not enough for you to be able to have a concrete plan to be able to have the success that you want. And so my recommendation for people getting started is focus on what the middle is going to look like rather than what the end and what the beginning is going to look like. Use the end and the beginning as motivators, but use the middle as the guiding post of how you're actually going to get there. And the way you do that is you put together a plan. And plans, again, are nothing more than idealistic, perfect, views of what you think is going to happen in the business, right? If you launch this product, if you launch this service, if you follow this plan, you're going to ultimately be able to, forecast out how you think that journey is going to go. Okay, I'm going to get to this point, and this thing is going to happen, and then I'm going to add this new feature, this new service, and then I'm going to go to this next level. But having that plan is at least giving you that guide, that roadmap, that that really concrete thought process of how it is that you're going to get to that end result. And so again, it's different for every business. But if you're just going at it saying, I'm going to work really hard and see what happens, like, that's not a plan. And sure, you may have success and you may will yourself into it. And again, I'm not stating you have to have an overthought plan, but you do have to have enough, inside of what you're trying to do so that you can actually have an opportunity to have success. So having that plan is paramount for you to get out the gate. So if you're just thinking about, starting a business, or maybe you're in a current job and you're thinking about taking a new career path, because this applies to that as well. Anything that you're doing where you're going to be trying something different and new and hoping for an end result, you need to come back to that plan. And so the middle is where I want people to focus, not the beginning, not the end, the middle. How are you going to do these things, these everyday iterative steps to get to that end result? And that's where you're going to have the best amount of success. So the word of the day here is the middle. And the goal of the day is to create a plan. Create a plan so you can get out of the gate strong, have a really solid understanding of what you're going to do in the business so that you can get to that end result. And again, if you don't have a plan, you're going to be sitting here focused and dreaming about the end, but you're never going to get there because you're going to be, you're going to lack the details you need in the middle to have that clarity. So as you put your plan in motion, think about the middle, think about the different forks you might take, try to have, again, a sketch, an outline, a well thought out plan, knowing that it's going to pivot, but that'll help you get to that end result. So I know you all want to get there at the end. Focus on the middle. That's how you get to the end. Hope you find this helpful. Please remember to like and comment, and most importantly, share. Have an amazing day. Thanks so much. I am Ron Dichter, and this is Projecting Grandeur.